So I'm doing a video interview with activist Wes White, whose videos are posted on John Doe 13K YouTube channel. That's John, one word, the first word, and then Doe 13K, the second word, which I had some trouble for about 5 years trying to figure out where it was, but it seemed like a long time. Anyway, I finally figured it out, and I suggest you check out his stuff. Stay away from the political nonsense supporting this candidate and that, of course, but pay attention to his on-the-scene work with homeless folks who are getting evicted or trying to attend futilely and foolishly, of course, but still with determination, the meetings of the very people who are authorizing and funding the evictions, but claiming not to do so at the same time. This is about we're petitioning and encouraging people to talk to I call it the shitty manager, the city council, city manager, Matt Huffaker. He's got his slick rap down pretty well. I spoke with him at the police department practices, what do they call it, post-it notes to the police. We're taking up the entire civic auditorium for this PR boondoggle that they pulled on Tuesday of last week. But we're attempting to encourage homeless folks, if they want to come have a cup of coffee here in the morning, a few rolls maybe, some cookies, or read some propaganda, and tell us their stories for free radio or free radio on the net, and then go in and tell the city manager what they think needs to be done, particularly regarding his plan to evict 500 people, 400 people, 300 people. It depends on who you talk to or the day you go or that sort of thing. In the Benchlands. That's coming up in July, according to city manager Matt Huffaker, although he's suggested maybe not, depends on other things, but be prepared. And apparently the rumors are being spread around the Benchlands. We talked to several people this morning who claim that the Benchlands are going to be depopulated in June this month, which to me seems highly unlikely because there's no place to send them, even though they are creating what do they call it, the golf lands or the outlook lands, or the armory area that was previously done by the county. The county is kicking everybody out of the armory. I think the city is going to be taking over the armory, but they're also setting up people in tents in an open area near the armory. That's my understanding. And it's apparently, it's got some advantages over the Benchlands in that you get bottled water. You can take showers for 15 minutes from a shower trailer, although I've heard them critically referred to by some homeless folks who've used them. The problem seems to be it's all in the sun. There's no shade, or maybe there's limited shade. I haven't been up there to look at it. So there's that. So we're here suggesting that we want to get some guarantees, not just for homeless folks who are in the Benchlands, where the threat is very specific, but the broader threat of people who are being evicted everywhere in town. Although I haven't heard of a lot of evictions, except perhaps in the Pogonip this morning, in Santa Cruz City recently, but they've shown the city police that they're willing to evict people or to assist Caltrans people in evicting people, even when they have no place to go other than a recently relabeled Benchlands as a sanctioned campground. It probably should be sanctioned in the different meaning of the word sanctioned. Somebody should demolish the whole thing and shoot the people who set it up, and I don't mean the homeless people. It was originally started by former city manager Martin Bernal Garcia, then head of Parks and Rec, and Andy Mills, who was then the police chief. He sent people there in 2017, 2018, thereabouts. And it seems like the city council doesn't wish to say it's sending people there because they would incur the animus of San Lorenzo neighbors and so forth. So they just sort of let it happen with a smile on their face and a scowl on their lips or whatever. A little of this and a little of that. Anyway, we're also suggesting that we want the city manager to take homeless input. We're giving him homeless input. And we're attempting to essentially, quite candidly, lobby the city manager, since he's the real power in the city, to do something with his $14.5 million slush fund that he's gotten, or the least city council and the city authorities have gotten from the state. We want to get an audit of the money that was spent over the last 5 years on so-called homeless funding, so they say. There's one suggestion that we complain to the grand jury, not that they'll do anything other than write a report that everyone will ignore, or at least they will refer to and sedulously insist that they're doing something about it. But that's something that, again, that creates a paper trail to show why, for example, some people are burning Parks and Rec vehicles and spray painting on the ground, stop the sweeps, as happened, 2 or 3 days ago, 4 days ago, something like that. The most dramatic demonstration of anger against the city policies since, I don't know, the flooding of City Hall 30 years ago, the burning of the city attorney's door 12 years ago. So it's, of course, the city council and the city manager are not likely to get the message at that point until large numbers of people show up with demands that can't be heard. And since, unfortunately, the communities in Santa Cruz, as I think you've mentioned yourself, Wes, regarding Salinas, are kind of disparate and divided, or perhaps deluded into believing that if only they talk nice enough to their city councils and their supervisors. It's only reasonable that you don't want to claim you can provide shelter for 400 people with 150 spots. Something seems wrong with the math. Perhaps what's needed is a better secondary education for the city officials. It's possible. But I tend to believe that the only value of talking to city officials is to demonstrate to the broader community that they're not listening. Not so much to give them a chance to listen, because they really have had a chance for years, and they will still have chances to listen. And they always have a chance to listen, but they choose not to, or at least they listen to the wrong people. Where's the evidence that Housing Matters success, as they've claimed in their large billboard, that's the homeless so-called services center at Coral Street, 115 Coral Street, has actually housed people in any permanent or even semi-permanent way? To my shame or my chagrin, or because I'm too lazy, or maybe because I gave up after the third email, asked about this question. I haven't asked about this question in ways that might, for example, require them to cough up information, even though they are a nonprofit, but they get some kind of city money, and there are some records of how they spend their money. The obvious question I asked of them back in 2015, I think it was, or 2016, thereabouts, when they cut off homeless meals. And they said, we're only going to feed people who are in our program on a, and I quote, pathway to housing, which inevitably, for most people, leads back to the street, which you might say, well, at least they get a nice tour of the navigation centers, with just, pleasant for a time. Of course, they have to apparently sign an agreement surrendering all their property, because we don't want any pack rats in their navigation center. I'm sorry. No, thank you. This is also to talk, this coffee clatch here is to talk about asking that there be real new police procedures to protect homeless folks outside from overeager police officers or bigoted community members, by which I don't mean we have an armed guard by the police coming by to stop vigilante activity, but rather that the police, if they suddenly get an urge to tell someone to move, have to follow a procedure that involves calling up a campground area or shelter, determining if there's a space, finding if it's disabled, capable, and providing some way of adequate notice time, as I believe you were mentioning earlier, Wes, for people to move. By the way, what I was going to encourage you to make sure you have the actual law in hand that requires the notice. It would seem to be elementary, but sometimes actually presenting the text of the law can make the police pause before the downward stroke of the baton. So, not necessarily forever, but can...
They could always just change their ordinance and take that word out.
They can, but that would require the state legislature to take some action. And until they do, you can always say, and we ask Lee Butler, Larry Imwalde, and Matt Huffaker to stop lying about the accessibility of space, particularly regarding, again, this basic issue about the benchlands, because they are going after all kinds of other camps and have in the last 6 months. They duck and dodge and make different claims. It's a fire danger. It's a fire hazard. It's that we're expanding the highway. We need to do this and that. I don't know. The graves are restless at the cemetery, and the Camp Paradise is disturbing the occupants. And that's certainly something which, believe it or not, I've actually heard from people, otherwise intelligent individuals on my net radio show years ago, that they were all in favor of homeless civil rights, but they were very angry that homeless people made a campground near a cemetery. They thought it was desecrating the dead. And I, of course, pointed out that I think it's the living, not the dead, that we give a shit about, but that wasn't their opinion. And that's what this is all about, onward and upward and downward. And there's a couple of flyers describing it, another in which I can hold up. This is a full-page flyer which kind of describes what the, I don't know if you can see it.
A little better. It's not going to be in the sun.
See if that works. Stop the Sweeps flyer, which is actually, this is a re-worded flyer from a year ago, when there was fear that the benchlands were going to be depopulated in July of, I guess it was 2021. And that's the truth, as far as I know it. We are trying to get the city manager to act like a human being, which is impossible.
What are you affiliated with? Or are you just doing this on your own?
We're with HUFF, Homeless United for Friendship.
Are you going to go with me? Oh, nice.
I'll give you a card.
That's what?
Of course, we'll have to interview you on your latest experiences.
Oh, I think I've talked to you before.
And maybe you've got some updates.
That certainly. Well, I left and came back. So
Here's a petition if you want to sign it or print it.
I would,
Nearing 11 on the... We're talking about
Sunshine?
and perhaps so this is a coffee clatch, which I will be probably repeating because we're being videoed by the erstwhile journalist Wes White from, I guess it's Salinas. That's
Yes.
correct, Wes?
Yes.
And you're actually, you're kind of doing double duty here today because you've heard that there is a, should we say, raid in the Pogonip of homeless encampment up there. And you folks have been sleeping outside.
Yeah.
Yep.
How could you do that?
Sometimes you get a team. Sometimes you find a spot that's nice and quiet. Wait for people.
And then also we've been staying up at the Armory, but it's too hot up there.
Tell me a bit about the Armory. How many people are there? What kind of accommodations do they have?
They have 2 spots. They're closing down the inside part where he's been staying, where you have a tent inside, and instead they're opening up. The city is running an outside part where they've just moved in a ton of people. So there's like 60 tents up there, but they're just in the bright sun, and it gets really hot up there. So it's not very pleasant during the day, and it's really far away, and you're not allowed to walk up. It's at De La Viega Park, and you're not allowed to walk off. You have to take the shuttles. So it feels a bit like a concentration camp.
Concentration camp?
Yeah, just a bit. And I'm Jewish, so I don't say that lightly. But they do have food, and it is a quiet place to sleep, which compared to the park, like the park is just so crazy at all hours.
Yeah.
Benchlands, yeah.
Now, how long were you there?
I was staying down in the park or on the beach or whatever for like the last month, but I stayed there before as well.
What about the armory? You haven't stayed?
I've only stayed up there for the last couple days, and it's actually called the Overlook.
And the overlook, that's the park
The new,
part of
yeah, the new outside park.
the tents.
Yeah.
Now, you've been there for how long?
I've been in the army about for like a couple years now.
And
But they're shutting it down. And
Yeah,
they don't
they're
really
shutting
have
it
a
down now, and
plan.
they don't have no plan. It's like we're shutting down. We got nowhere for y'all to go.
Sorry.
This is just what we've been told. This is what.
you got to tough it out here. You know?
Yeah.
It's going to give you more muscles when you tough it out.
But like
Oh,
in
yeah.
all that
I
time,
toughed
they
out. I
haven't
figured
found
out.
a housing or really done anything helpful.
Now,
They
how
just,
many
like-
people would you say you've heard of that got housing from this armory caper?
Maybe one of them, a friend of mine, but he's got that through some other ways. Because he's like older. There's actually
But really one person.
no technically, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not.
But it wasn't like they can say that they got him housing, but we don't think anything.
They do have showers up there.
Yeah.
They're really gross, but they have them.
If you say gross, does that mean
They're those shower trailers, and they're like you walk in and it's all wet.
And are you to give you a 15-minute option? Or?
Yeah, 15 minutes. Yeah. They tried the best. They tried.
They're sort of trying. There's bottled water
Yeah.
Bottled water.
and sort of decent food. There were hot dogs for lunch yesterday.
Are they
Yeah.
advising people to go to the Benchlands when they're telling people to leave?
No, Benchlands closing like in the middle of this month.
So they're just telling people nothing. The people at the armory, they're just giving them no options, basically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, lefty.
And like they got the Benchlands that's closing like on the 15th. Army's closing on the 28th of this month.
They're just
and
kicking everyone to nowhere.
Now, when you say the Benchlands is closing on June 15th, where do you get that information
Up people around.
from? Have any official-looking types walked by and said, "You must be out of here by the 15th"?
Not that I know of.
I don't really go down there since.
But Jeremy, who runs the camp, and
Jeremy
is now,
Leonard.
yeah,
Oh,
and is
no.
now running the Overlook, or is getting people into the Overlook, said the Benchlands is going to get crazy in the next couple weeks. So I think they really are planning on trying to kick everyone out. But I don't, like, to where? And there's 400 people down there or more. Like, I don't know what they're thinking.
Perhaps they're just,
Not thinking.
it's easier that way. It's kind of gentle, very gentle. You don't think.
I just feel like the only thing that they have is to try to ship us out of town. That's the only thing
Well,
they
out
can
of town
try.
or out of sight, your choice.
Right.
I'd rather be out of sight, but in town. But there's a lot of people, like, if you get a housing voucher, most of the places that will actually accept you is either Washington or San Jose. But, like, you came to Santa Cruz for a reason, right? To live in Santa Cruz. And all the places that will take a housing voucher are just denying everyone.
Have you gotten a voucher and found that experience, or talking from friends you know, or how?
Yeah, a lot of friends I know, they go out looking at houses, and they just get denied left and right. He wants one here in Santa Cruz, but I believe he's getting one in Watsonville.
Yeah, your
somewhere.
one friend, his one friend who's getting housing, he's getting housing in Watsonville.
By housing, does that mean
An apartment.
an apartment
Yeah.
on a rent on a monthly basis? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does that include an overseer with a whip in this case?
probably most likely, because most of those places won't allow you to have friends over or guests, and they be like really strict, trying to trip you up so they can have a reason to kick you out type of situation.
Is that true with your friend's place, or are you just suggesting it's probably true?
Oh no, because we know people that's done it.
Right, but I mean, is that true in the particular location he's in?
I don't know about this location, but in most locations it'd be like that. We
Even
gonna find
the
once he
motels are
gets
like
there, we'll
that.
find out.
Even the motels are like that.
Yeah.
Now, are the motels still open, or are they mostly closed?
No, they closed all but one of them.
Yeah.
In terms of like the free motels for COVID stuff.
And what was the one that's now still open?
I don't remember.
Oceanside or something?
I don't remember which one.
And is that due to be closed, or do you have any?
I think it's due to be closed too. I think basically they're closing everything with no plan for anyone. The only thing that'll be left is the overlook, which is really questionable.
Well, it's a good place to get a suntan, I understand.
Yeah, it's a good place to boil alive in your tent.
Well, lobster works.
And then freeze at night. Yeah,
lobster.
you're boiling like a lobster and then freezing.
Oh, you have to freeze lobster after you boil it, or it'll spoil. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so
Just
let's
eat it.
not criticize what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Without understanding.
Sure.
Cuisine-ish kind of. Right. Any experiences downtown you want to comment on? You look informally dressed. Have you been accused of being homeless?
I mean, no, I make it really obvious that I'm homeless by asking people for their leftovers. And then when I go into stores, I'm pretty clean comparatively, and I have spent a lot of money in this town. Like, I'm not always homeless. This is sort of by accident. My family is from here, and I currently don't have access to my bank account, so I'm just kind of fucked and trying to figure out what's due to my ex and just trying to figure out how to like deal with that. And I will say that the resources for domestic violence survivors, and this has nothing to do with him, are really not good in this town. I tried to go to Chestnut Street, they were not helpful, and it's just like not really anyone. People keep talking about vouchers for an ID and then not following through, and just the sort of lack of follow through between all the different agencies is really amazing, in terms of both like getting people stuck here and then not doing anything about it, and then not actually having resources. It's really shocking, actually. And that includes even like Keith and Food Not Bombs, where Keith is a family friend and like in theory should be a lot more helpful to me. My aunt introduced him to his girlfriend, but he's so overwhelmed that like he can't really be that helpful to anyone other than like doing what he does every day, which is really helpful in terms of like serving food and having clothes and stuff.
Free coffee, grab some.
But in terms of like a further help from anyone other than sort of like day-to-day sustenance, there's just really bad.
Now, have you tried the footbridge services?
I don't trust that dude. Any dude who runs a women's shelter is questionable to me. He is sketchy as far as I'm concerned.
And is that, would you say that that's because of evidence you've seen that there's a reason for feeling that way, or is it more your own just personal sense?
I have some information and also my personal sense, which I trust.
That he has been abusive to him?
Yeah, that he takes advantage of his position, which I
Sexually?
That is what I have heard and know for a fact has happened at least once with a woman who is of age, but to me is, you know, in a position of not power. Yeah. And I really don't, for that reason, trust it. Plus, having a women's shelter right where everything else is seems like really dumb. If you're trying to protect women from their abusive exes, like having them be exactly where their exes they are doesn't help.
Now, if the wind doesn't blow you away, because it often does with these recordings. I've heard that at least in one of these shelters, COVID is spreading, although not necessarily fatal COVID, but COVID that is contagious.
I know for sure somebody up at the Overlook has COVID, like confirmed as of this morning on the shuttle down. And I like took the shuttle up with him yesterday. And so then this morning I was like, hey, is it that person who has COVID? And the shuttle driver was like, I'm not supposed to tell you, but yeah, obviously it's that really sick person.
And
Who's
so
young and like isn't gonna die, but
He's still,
But
he or
he's-
she is still sick.
he's still really sick. And just like took the shuttle and, you know, is there.
So, are you now, without necessarily revealing your sleeping spot, unless you choose to advertise it, how are your current location and accommodations last night?
I mean, I stayed up there and it was fine. Lefty gave me some extra blankets, more than they gave me, so it's like warm enough. But then at 8 a.m. it gets boiling hot and you start boiling like a lobster.
You're talking about the infamous outlook?
At Overlook. At the
Overlook.
Overlook.
Well,
And other than that, I have a tent in the park, but I have to go check on. I mean, I don't have a tent in the park anymore because I signed a waiver saying I gave up all of my possessions. But I
tell
have
me
to
about
go.
that waiver.
To get a voucher to go up to the Overlook, you have to say that you're getting rid of all your other stuff and that you don't have a tent anywhere else anymore.
That's for your own good.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You don't want to have to carry around these big floppy tents.
Exactly.
Simply ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, but then you can't
Give
keep the
someone
tent
else
they
that
give
one.
you. But I have to go check on my stuff in the park because it rained and we'll see what happened to it.
Do you have people watching your stuff?
My stuff is like behind someone's spot, so yes. It's a place that in theory no one will steal from, but I mean the scavengers in the park, who knows? When I leave it alone for 24 hours, anyone might come through.
Yeah.
How long have you been in the park?
I've been out of the park. It's been.
You were there for a while though.
I was there for a while, but then after the park started getting
Or
really
the park
bad.
individual?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
It gets too triggering.
at the beginning it was really nice when they first like just opened it up and.
How long ago was that?
What was it? Back in 2020, 21.
2021.
Yeah, probably beginning 2021, end of 2020. Yeah.
2021 was when the injunction set up the park.
Yeah.
2021. Yeah. But yeah, since then, this park's kind of gotten bad. And
So many people are fighting and like setting off fireworks in the middle of the night and just doing things that are really triggering for everyone's PTSD. So in addition to it being literally violent and scary, it's also just like really loud and it makes it hard to sleep. Especially for people like us who have a lot of PTSD.
Now, you're a man of darker skin color.
Yeah.
Have you had any exciting experiences in Santa Cruz regarding?
Mostly, sometimes.
Everyone here is really, I as a white but Jewish person will say that everyone here is really racist. And especially when the two of us go around together, I feel like people are really not stoked on it.
And how do you notice? I mean, how can you get inside the minds of these fellow citizens who may love you secretly?
I mean, it's hard to say, but there are a lot of literal Aryan Nation people who either are very apologetic for their Aryan Nationness or are very like fetishizing of our otherness in a way that I haven't experienced anywhere else. Like the level of awareness of race here, and especially the awareness of like my Judaism here, is really high.
So anti-Semitic.
Yeah, anti-Semitic or apologetic, one of the two. Either like people who, because they had to run white in prison or whatever and have a swastika tattooed on them somewhere, feel really bad and treat me in a weird way because they feel really bad about having been Aryan Nation, or people who just are really, really racist and anti-Semitic. And it's, you know, the sort of white gangs of Santa Cruz are really hard.
Have you tried to join up?
Oh yeah, totally. Everyone tries to wife me up to their weird fake gang. Everyone tells me they're the chalk color of the corner and then tries to wife me up to their gang. I know I'm laughing, but it's really true. It's very strange. I've never experienced this anywhere else. And I've lived in New York, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Berkeley. Like, I've lived in every major city basically, and I've never had the experience of so many weird fake white gangs. And then there's also the cops who are horrible.
Tell me about the pool.
I would like to state specifically that Officer Zimmerman, who told me herself is not Jewish, and arrested me for nothing, literally for drunk and disorderly when I wasn't, so I like got processed through, mugshotted and let out, is a horrible cop and should be fucking left from the force immediately. Like, she should be fired. She's awful. The cops really mess with me. I have a clean record. I still have a clean record, and they really just hate everyone and are
Have
not
you chatted with the police chief?
No, I tried to. I like tried to go ring the door at the police station, but you can't. It's hidden. And then I was trying to talk to the cops and they arrested me to a mental hospital, which, you know, Delicare Santa Cruz, not bad as far as things go. But again, like everything, the services that they offered they didn't follow through on.
Did they
So
give you
here I
the
stand.
right medication?
They did. They did give me the right medication, and I, in that blue backpack, still have it. So that's something.
Are you currently medicated?
I'm currently taking lithium. Thumbs up to lithium.
Now, is this something that you requested or something they decided?
No, they decided I needed to have it, but honestly,
Well, they knew
I like
best.
it.
You know that.
I get so, my mom's a therapist, and I get really mad at her because she always sides with mental hospital doctors over me. But I will say the lithium is
So you're
bad.
really a crazy person.
Oh yeah, I'm a lunatic. Absolutely
Would
insane.
you agree with that? We have two mentally ill individuals.
Absolutely, mentally
Have
ill.
you sought
I-
state services to help
I
you?
have, in fact, and they have not really helped me. I also, have a Master of Fine Arts from Brown University, but I'm totally crazy.
Would Brown University concur?
I don't know, they let me graduate, so
So
they let me teach undergrads. I think they, I have a Master of Fine Arts in playwriting, so everyone's crazy.
will you be writing a play about your Santa Cruz experience?
Oh, eventually, probably a movie, but yeah, I have fancy agents in Hollywood. Like, that's the thing, that so many of the people here who are homeless are running away from fame of some kind, or are professional skaters or surfers. And a lot of people do have drug addictions, but that doesn't make them a bad person. And Santa Cruz rent being completely insanely expensive doesn't mean that everyone deserves to live in a tent on a hot cliff. Yeah.
So you want mint under your pillows every morning, is that
I
it?
want Perrier.
Not Perrier, well, I understand that. Again, regarding the fine treatment you get from, as an African American, would it be fair to call you an African American?
I'm just American.
He's just black.
Call you black? Call you brown?
Whatever you want.
Call you late?
Don't call me late.
He's late for dinner.
Have you got any exciting tales of racism that we liberals can agonize about?
No, I only experience this myself.
He just ignores it.
Yeah. Like, I only see it as like that. I see it as an individual being weird.
Being weird, is that what he said?
Yeah. And sometimes I can like change the way they look. The way they're looking, and then I mess up their heads by being more racist.
Also, Ty is from Iowa, and he listens to like weird country music. So he once described me lefty. He described himself as the whitest black man in the world, and he is
That's what
pretty
everyone else
white.
says. That's what everyone else says to me. So
I do think that the level of racism in Santa Cruz, like, has to just be ignored at a certain extent. Like, it is so high that you have to just sort of like be nice to everyone, or at least that's what both he and I do. We're like non-violent, we're kind to everyone, we're kind to people who are not kind to us, and it gets us through, because there's not much that if someone hates you, there's not much that they can do if you just return love to that. So, my parents were hippies, and I think that like,
That's why you're mentally ill. Because
yes,
your parents are
oh God,
very
yes,
ill.
exactly. No, but I think it's important to like remember that Santa Cruz is about peace, love, and like getting along, and it's not about fucking rich tech people. And like that is the goal of Santa Cruz, and people should be allowed to live in the park, in any of the parks, and people should be allowed to do what they want. Thank you for talking to us, sir.
We've been talking with Your Majesty. Please.
Your Majesty. I'm Sunshine or Mallory.
lefty, what's up, Scott?
I'm talking with
Troy.
And Troy, you just returned from the Sycamore Grove area where you've been told that some kind of clearing operation is happening around a homeless camp.
Well, there really wasn't a homeless camp there. He said there were only a few people down there camping. And all their stuff had been moved out days ago. And they have a county work crew in there with chainsaws clearing.
Huh. Now, who did you talk to, and what was the nature of the agency?
He was a Santa Cruz police officer. There was approximately 3 Santa Cruz police officers there, and maybe a highway patrolman. And they had a tractor with a flail mower attachment, about 6 to 8 foot wide flail mower on the back of it. So it's the county works department was cleaning up vegetation there. It's basically all they were doing today.
And were there any witnesses that were non-police and non-workers?
No. He said on any normal day, people can go walking in there, but not camping. You can park there and walk in and out, and that's fine. There's public access. But there weren't many people camping there, and all the stuff had been moved off days ago, he said.
Can you give me any indication that they were doing a general cleanup or clearing out of the program?
No.
Did you ask him that question?
No.
Any other thoughts or observations you want to pass on?
They were polite. The police were polite, and it was, there were no people there camping, so there were no issues. That's it.
And we've been talking with?
Troy from Scotts Valley.
Thank you. You went to the Gay Pride Parade yesterday.
Yes,
Indeed, and you gave away flyers.
yes.
And you said it was a massive parade, and there was no heat stroke at that time?
Nothing that I saw. It was cool because, you know, it was raining yesterday.
That's, yeah.
It was misty. I thought that it was going to be not very many people were going to show up because it was raining. It was packed, and the people were in costumes, and they had marching bands, and they did the Mickey Mouse, M-I-C-K-U-I-M-O-U-S-E. Remember that?
I do.
And you know, and they did a whole bunch of Disney songs.
Fans of Disney's latest new PR, we want some gays to come into our business, sort of thing.
Well, you know, they were in support of what Disney did, responding to DeSantis in Florida. You know, they were. I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah. No, I'm sure you're right. Were there any police officials in uniform in this parade?
You know, I think I saw one or two that were on the sides. You know how they put them on the side streets a little bit, but they were so outnumbered. There were so many people there in every kind of costume. I saw folks I knew from Food Not Bombs, lots of homeless folks, lots of housed folks, and kids and old people, and it was just a blast. It was, as a matter of fact, it was the best parade I've ever been to in Santa Cruz, and even better than some of the Christmas parades. So I was really glad I went.
How many people would you estimate were at the parade?
That's really hard for me to guess. The street was packed. Does that make 1,000 or a couple thousand maybe?
I don't know.
I have no idea. I don't know how to gauge that.
Were you in any of the massive post-Trump, or right after Trump was inaugurated parades?
No.
They were pretty
Yeah.
huge, and of course Black Lives Matter had big parades here.
Yeah. But I was in some of the Black Lives Matter parades.
Were they bigger than those?
It was bigger, yes. It was the biggest parade I've seen. It had everybody, you know, black people and all the different, every persuasion.
Free vouchers and low rents for all the poor people.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't think so.
No, not that.
Yeah.
All right, but it was fun. It was fun. I was glad I went.
Dig it. And we've been talking with
Laura.
Thanks.